Let's talk about something most people feel but rarely say out loud. Not everything in your life deserves a family group chat. There are a few personal habits that, when kept private, protect your peace, your confidence, and your independence. And today, we're breaking down the 5 big ones every older woman should keep to herself. Personal boundaries are one of the most underrated forms of self-care, especially for women who have spent years putting everyone else first. As you get older, the value of your time, your energy, and your emotional bandwidth becomes crystal clear. You've learned what drains you and what restores you, but the challenge is that family members don't always adjust to the new version of you. They often expect the same level of availability, the same patterns, the same reflex of yes you once gave without thinking. That's why keeping your personal boundaries private and firm is essential, not because you're hiding something, but because you're protecting the parts of yourself you worked hard to rebuild. A boundary doesn't need an audience to be valid, it just needs consistency. There's a misconception that boundaries have to be explained in detail to everyone who's affected by them. The truth is, the more you over-explain, the more you invite debate. When you're setting a boundary, especially with family, you're often dealing with people who believe they have automatic access to your life. They assume they're entitled to your time or your decisions simply because of the relationship. Explaining a boundary to someone who doesn't want to understand it only leads to pushback and guilt tripping. Keeping your boundary private allows you to implement it quietly and firmly without opening it up to negotiation. Instead of saying, I need space because you just take the space. Instead of saying, I can't help because you simply don't overcommit. Your choices become the explanation. As women age, they often become the emotional anchors of their families. Everyone turns to them for reassurance, conflict solving, support, and guidance. But being the anchor doesn't mean letting yourself sink. A private boundary might look like choosing not to answer the phone after a certain hour. It might be limiting how much of your personal life you share. It might be saying no to responsibilities that aren't yours to carry. These small acts of protection are powerful because they reinforce that your well-being matters just as much as everyone else's. You're not withdrawing from your family. You're withdrawing from the expectation that you must be endlessly available. There's a huge difference. The older you get, the more you realize that peace is not something you stumble into. It's something you create by intention. And boundaries are the tools you use to build that peace. The mistake many women make is treating boundaries like announcements rather than personal commitments. You don't have to declare your limits for them to be real. When you quietly protect your time and energy, the people around you adjust naturally. Some may resist at first, but eventually they learn to interact with you based on the behavior you consistently model. You don't have to argue your worth. You demonstrate it through what you allow and what you no longer participate in. One of the biggest internal shifts is understanding that privacy is not a wall, it's a filter. You're not shutting people out, you're controlling what gets in. A private boundary gives you the freedom to grow without commentary, evolve without scrutiny, and step into the next phase of your life with confidence instead of obligation. Your boundary becomes a quiet reminder to yourself. You are not required to live your life according to anyone else's comfort level. You are not required to accommodate every expectation placed on you. And you are not required to dilute yourself to keep the peace. Financial autonomy becomes increasingly important as you grow older, not because money defines your value, but because control over your finances directly shapes your independence. Many older women have spent a large portion of their lives making financial decisions around the needs of their families. They've budgeted for children, sacrificed for spouses, contributed to household stability, and supported loved ones even when it meant putting their own goals on hold. But at this stage of life, your financial choices carry a different weight. They're no longer about fulfilling obligations. They're about securing your well-being, protecting your freedom, and honoring the life you've built. Keeping your financial habits private safeguards you from judgment, pressure, or manipulation from people who may not fully understand or respect your priorities. One of the biggest misconceptions is that family has a right to know everything about how you spend or manage your money, but transparency is not an obligation, and privacy does not equal secrecy. Financial autonomy means you get to make decisions without having to explain them, justify them, or soften them for someone else's comfort. When people know the details of your financial situation, they often form expectations, borrowing money, asking for help, criticizing your purchases, or assuming you can take on more responsibility because they believe you have enough. Keeping your financial life private removes those assumptions before they even start. It lets you choose generosity on your own terms rather than out of pressure. As an older woman, you've lived long enough to know which financial risks you're willing to take, what brings you security, and what aligns with your sense of stability. You may be saving more intentionally, investing differently, or spending money on things that enhance your quality of life. You might prioritize health, experiences, or comfort. You might choose simplicity or choose indulgence. None of these decisions require a committee. When family members have access to your financial information, they also tend to voice their opinions freely, often without understanding your reasoning. They may question your choices, judge them, or try to redirect them according to their own beliefs. Keeping your financial autonomy private shields you from unnecessary commentary and allows you to act without second-guessing yourself. There is also an emotional component to financial independence that people rarely talk about. Money and guilt often get intertwined, especially for women who have spent years nurturing everyone around them. If you've given generously in the past, family members may assume you will always be ready to help. If you've been the dependable one, the responsible one, or the financially stable one, they might see you as a safety net. But you are not obligated to jeopardize your own security or retirement to solve other people's problems. When you keep your financial habits private, you create a healthy boundary between their needs and your long-term well-being. It's not about refusing support, it's about choosing support deliberately, wisely, and without sacrifice that harms you in the future. Financial autonomy also gives you the freedom to evolve. You might be exploring new opportunities, learning new money habits, or recovering from past financial challenges. You may be rebuilding, restructuring, or redefining what financial peace looks like for you. Privacy allows you to go through those transitions without pressure or scrutiny. It gives you space to make mistakes, adjust your plans, and grow at your own pace. When people don't have access to the inner workings of your financial life, they can't interfere, judge, or insert themselves into decisions that are meant to be yours alone. At this stage of life, financial autonomy isn't just about dollars. It's about dignity, confidence, and control over your future. It's the ability to live according to your values, not anyone else's expectations. It's the freedom to protect what you've earned, prioritize what matters to you, and create stability that supports the next chapter of your life. Emotional processing is one of the most personal experiences a woman can have, and as you grow older, it becomes even more important to handle your emotions in a way that protects your peace. You have lived through enough challenges, transitions, and unexpected turns to know that your reactions are not something to perform for others. Family often believes they have the right to know what you feel, why you feel it, and how they can influence it. But the truth is, not every emotion needs an audience. Keeping your emotional process private gives you space to sort through what is real, what is temporary, and what requires action without being swayed by opinions, assumptions, or pressure from the people around you. When you share every feeling openly with family, it becomes easy for them to misinterpret or magnify what you're going through. A moment of upset becomes a crisis. A passing frustration becomes a family discussion. A private hurt becomes a topic for everyone to weigh in on. Emotional processing is delicate, and when too many voices enter the room, it stops being about how you feel and becomes about how everyone else thinks you should feel. Privacy allows you to sit with your emotions long enough to understand them before anyone else labels them. It gives you ownership of your inner world. As an older woman, you've learned that emotional strength isn't about holding everything together for others. It's about understanding yourself well enough to respond instead of react. When you take time to process your emotions quietly, you develop clarity that doesn't depend on approval. You don't rush to vent. You don't rush to fix. You don't rush to justify why you feel what you feel. You give yourself the grace to reflect, to breathe, and to see your experiences from a grounded perspective. And when you do choose to share, you're sharing from a place of clarity rather than rawness. That difference protects relationships, reduces conflict, and allows you to express yourself in a way that honors both your feelings and your boundaries. There's also a generational pattern many women fall into without noticing. For years, you may have been the emotional caretaker of your family. You listened to everyone's problems, offered comfort, carried emotional burdens, and held the household together. When you finally experience your own emotional needs, family members may not be used to seeing you vulnerable or withdrawn. They may try to diagnose, overstep, or take control. Keeping your emotional processing private helps you break that cycle. It teaches others that you are not solely defined by what you give. You also have an inner life that deserves protection and respect. Processing emotions privately also means you're less likely to be influenced by guilt, criticism, or unwanted advice. When you're upset, uncertain, or overwhelmed, you're at your most vulnerable. That vulnerability can make you more susceptible to the emotional weight of others. Some family members might unintentionally make your feelings about them. Others might try to solve the situation without understanding it. Some might judge your reactions simply because they don't match what they expect from you. But when you take time to process privately, you create a buffer that keeps you from absorbing unnecessary stress. You're able to approach your emotions with a clearer mind and a stronger sense of control. Another powerful part of private emotional processing is the freedom to change your mind. You can feel something intensely one day and see it differently the next. You can have doubts that resolve themselves. You can work through hurt without turning it into a story that everyone around you remembers. When you keep your emotional journey to yourself, you give yourself room to grow, shift, release, or understand without being boxed into the version of you that others create. Privacy creates space for evolution. It lets you move through emotions instead of becoming stuck in them. It lets you honor your feelings without letting them define you. In the quieter moments when you process your emotions alone, you reconnect with your intuition, your wisdom, and your strength. You learn to trust yourself again. You learn that your emotional world does not require constant explanation. You learn that peace often comes not from talking through every feeling, but from understanding which feelings deserve your energy and which ones simply need time to pass. Health routines are deeply personal. And as you grow older, protecting those routines from unnecessary commentary becomes an essential part of preserving your well-being. Family members often feel entitled to weigh in on what you should or shouldn't be doing with your body, your habits, or your daily practices. They may question your choices, offer unsolicited advice, or assume they know what's best for you based on their own beliefs. But your health is not a group project. It's a lifelong relationship between you and your own body, shaped by experience, intuition, and the lessons you've gathered through the years. Keeping your health routines private helps you maintain control over that relationship without interference or pressure from others. As an older woman, you understand your body better than anyone else. You've lived through changes, challenges, and seasons of healing that have taught you what works for you and what doesn't. Whether you're trying a new diet, exploring alternative remedies, adjusting medications, starting a fitness routine, or focusing on rest, your choices are based on your personal needs. Sharing these habits with family often opens the door to opinions that are not always helpful. Some may worry excessively, some may criticize, some may try to take charge or override your decisions, and others may minimize your efforts because they don't see the purpose behind them. Keeping these routines private allows you to follow what genuinely benefits you without external noise. Health is not just physical, it's emotional, mental, and spiritual. Sometimes your routine might be less about changing your body and more about protecting your peace. Maybe you take quiet walks to clear your head. Maybe you practice meditation, journaling, or breathing exercises to stay grounded. Maybe you've stopped sharing every appointment, every concern, or every symptom because you're choosing to manage them with calm rather than collective anxiety. Many families unintentionally amplify worry. What starts as a simple update becomes a long discussion, a chain of questions, or a debate about what you should do next. Keeping your routine private shields you from this cycle and lets you focus on healing rather than explaining. There's also an empowerment that comes from taking control of your health silently. When you don't broadcast every change, you avoid the pressure of meeting other people's expectations. You don't feel judged if you adjust your routine or if something doesn't work. You don't feel watched or compared. You can try, experiment, pause, or pivot without anyone tracking your progress. This freedom makes it easier to stay consistent because you're doing it for yourself, not performing for someone else's approval or reassurance. Your health becomes a personal commitment, not a public report card. Another important part of keeping your routines private is avoiding family dynamics that can discourage or derail you. Some relatives may unintentionally guilt you for prioritizing your health when they expect your time or attention. Others may dismiss your new habits because they don't align with what they believe. Some may lecture you, others may be skeptical, and while their intentions may come from love, their input can create doubt or confusion. By maintaining privacy, you protect yourself from these emotional stumbling blocks. You give yourself space to strengthen the habits you choose without battling resistance from people who may not understand your goals. Health routines often reflect deeper personal growth. They may represent your desire to stay active, your commitment to longevity, or your effort to rebuild after a difficult period. They may be part of reclaiming your power or honoring the needs you ignored for years. These changes can be sensitive. They may be tied to past struggles, insecurities, or triumphs that are nobody's business but your own. When you keep this journey private, you create a safe environment for yourself to heal, evolve, and take ownership of your well-being. Privacy in health practices also encourages self-trust. You learn to listen to your body without requiring validation. You learn to observe changes, acknowledge signals, and make choices based on what feels right for you. This self-awareness strengthens your confidence and helps you maintain balance, stability, and peace. Health is a lifelong journey, and privacy gives you the space to navigate it with clarity and intention. Relationship choices become more personal and more significant as you get older, and keeping them private protects you from expectations, assumptions, and outside pressure that can complicate what should be your decision alone. Whether you are choosing who to spend time with, who to distance yourself from, or whether to open your heart again after years of focusing on family and responsibilities, those choices deserve space to breathe without being analyzed by the people around you. Family often means well, but they also tend to offer opinions based on their fears, their biases, or their own experiences rather than what actually fits your life. Privacy gives you the freedom to explore connections without judgment and without having to defend your decisions. As an older woman, your relationships evolve differently than they did in your younger years. You're no longer building your life from scratch. You're refining it. You're choosing people more intentionally, looking for peace, understanding, and companionship, rather than validation, approval, or a sense of proving yourself. These choices are intimate because they reflect your growth, your boundaries, and your wisdom. Sharing them too early or too openly can invite unnecessary commentary that disrupts your clarity. Family might question why you're interested in someone, why you're not interested, why you're reconnecting with an old friend, or why you're walking away from a long-held connection. Their questions sometimes create doubt where there wasn't any to begin with. Privacy helps you avoid that doubt. There is also a deeply emotional layer to relationship decisions that outsiders often cannot see. You know the history behind your choices, you know what you've experienced, what you've learned, and what you're no longer willing to tolerate. You understand the patterns you've outgrown and the kind of peace you need moving forward. When you keep your relationship choices private, you honor the experiences that shaped you. You allow yourself to move in new directions without having to carry the weight of old narratives that family members may still be holding on to. They may see things through the lens of the past, but you are choosing from the wisdom of the present. Some older women find themselves exploring romantic possibilities again, whether after divorce, widowhood, or simply after years of prioritizing everyone else. These decisions can feel vulnerable. You might be rediscovering parts of yourself you haven't connected with in a long time. You might be learning what companionship means at this stage of your life. You might be taking things slowly, cautiously, or quietly as you figure out what feels right. When too many people know too soon, their opinions can overshadow your own instincts. Family might worry, overprotect, or project their ideas onto your situation. Keeping your heart's choices private lets you move at your own pace without emotional interference. On the other side, relationship choices don't always involve new connections. Sometimes they involve stepping back, creating distance, protecting yourself, letting go of relationships that drain you, whether they're friendships, past partners, or even extended family ties. These decisions can be difficult and can stir up guilt or misunderstanding if shared too openly. Not everyone will understand why you're choosing peace over history, or why you're prioritizing your mental and emotional health over maintaining a connection out of obligation. When you keep these decisions private, you avoid having to justify something that already took a great deal of courage to do. Another important aspect of privacy around relationship choices is the space it gives you to change your mind. You might try reconnecting with someone and later decide it doesn't serve you. You might choose to step away from someone and later feel ready to give the relationship another chance.